Hi out there. This is Ivy Griffin, the founder and director of Thrive Therapy and Counseling. And as many of you know, I love to specialize in helping highly sensitive people, which comprise about 15 to 20% of the population, really come to understand their personality trait of sensitivity and embrace who they are to live happier, better lives. So today I want to talk about family relationships. As you can imagine, this is a topic that comes up a lot in the therapy room, and it's something that I hear a lot of highly sensitive people or HSPs struggle with, right? There are a lot of different expectations that families have, and it varies a lot depending on your family. Some HSPs have families who are very supportive and very encouraging, and that's fantastic. Although I do also see that even with those families, sometimes highly sensitive people struggle to set the boundaries that they need to take care of themselves. And then I see other folks who come from families that are maybe too judging or that just ask too much of you or even demand too much. Or don't know how to show emotions or never really learned how to deal with that themselves. And that leaves for these really lacking family relationships and dynamics. So I've come up with some guidelines that I know have been helpful to people for navigating some of these tough situations. Because as we know, with family, they're kind of not going anywhere. And a lot of times family members aren't really going to change. They may be pretty set in who they are. And whereas if it were a friend or a coworker who was troublesome, we might just say, see ya, I don't really have to interact with you, or I can really limit it. It can be different with family members. So here are some of the tips that I found to be helpful for folks. One is know your limits ahead of time. If you have a difficult family member, think about how much time you're comfortable spending with them. Instead of maybe spending all day together or all weekend together, maybe you limit that to a couple hours at dinner time, right? Or even think about how often you talk to them. If you usually do a weekly phone call or weekly Skype call, maybe you want to cut that back to a couple times a month or even less than that, depending on what works for you. But really pay attention to at what point you start to feel really uncomfortable and unhappy, and see if you can use that information to know where your limits and your boundaries are and have that in your head ahead of time so that you can go into the interaction knowing when you're going to need to leave. You can always make up an excuse. That part we can talk about later. And then also consider your own values when it comes to family relationships. I know sometimes for people it's really important that they have some sort of connection with a person, even if they're very trying or difficult. So think about that, because if you believe you need to have a connection with that person, you want to honor that. And that can look like anything from getting together in person to a phone call to texting to emailing, right? But know that how you feel about maintaining these relationships is also important. For other people, sometimes they value having really healthy, supportive relationships in their lives, and they just say, I don't have time or energy to deal with people who are going to drag me down or be very draining. And so I'm either going to create a lot of distance between myself and them, or I'm just gonna step back and kind of let this relationship fade and maybe not even respond to calls or text. And that's okay too, because you're the person who has to take care of you, right? And it's a good reminder that other people aren't gonna do that, sometimes even well-meaning family. So it's up to you to consider what's important to you and take care of yourself. Next, I also think it's really important to take breaks when you're interacting with difficult family members. And breaks can be really simple. It can be stepping out to go to the bathroom. Sometimes taking some deep breaths in the bathroom can be a total lifesaver. It can be stepping outside for a few minutes, making an excuse that you have to make a call if you're in person, going into another room, closing the door. It can even be making an excuse to get off a phone call or a Skype call because you're just really uncomfortable with how the conversation is going, right? So again, it's kind of setting those limits for yourself. Also, I recommend that you allow for some ebb and flow. Nothing in life is constant, especially not family relationships, nor our feelings about them. So I invite you to allow for this and accept this and not beat yourself up if you go through a period of time where you don't want to talk to someone at all, and then you decide that you want to have some more regular interaction with them. Any of that is okay, right? Relationships can always be adjusted based on what we need. So remember that too. And then also, I encourage you to invest in relationships that fill you back up. As highly sensitive people, our energy is so valuable and it's a finite resource. So we deserve to give it and invest in people who also fill up our cup, who make us feel good. And whether or not those are family members, you can really focus on having some of those relationships in your life and giving more to those people where it feels balanced and reciprocal than you give to people that drain you or exhaust you. So I hope you find these tips helpful, and I want you to know you owe it to yourself to set good boundaries with difficult family members or any difficult person in your life, right? You get to take care of you. You're your most valuable resource. So I invite you to try out these tips. Let me know how it goes. And if you want more tips and ideas like this, hop on over to my website, thrivetherapyandcounseling.com, and you can sign up to get my monthly HSP blog for free. All right, take care.